Let's see what happens.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Let me just see it. Make sure it's going to go through. I couldn't get on the last show,
Mm,
which is the second time. How you doing, brother?
I'm fine, thank you.
There
Hunky dory.
you go, hunky dory. We're live. We're live on Facebook already.
Are we?
Yeah, yeah. I had trouble on the last show. I couldn't get on, and I had trouble about 3 shows back too.
I've
Uh,
been I've been having trouble for a week now with every call I make, Facebook or Skype. It, it's terrible. It's a
it must.
fight.
Yeah, it must be something in the air.
Yeah, there is.
And
It's
I'm
loving the air.
it's love in the air, man. That's right. Just trying to wake us up and tell us don't take things so seriously. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing makes sense, and we're not going nowhere.
Exactly. We're not going anywhere. I like that. That's very true. All right. What is this? I just looked for something to prop my phone on and it says calm. So maybe that's all right. Well, we're gonna let people come in. I know we had a little hiccup on the last show. This is gonna be a good show. I'm excited about this one.
Me
Uh,
too.
yeah, I was really happy to get that from you. And I was a little slow getting back because Morgan just got here. She's been here now 4 days, I think. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. All right, we got quite a few people coming in the house. 30 people. These shows resonate. Please share. I'm going to go ahead and share this to the Soulogy network, and as well as let's see if I can pull it up. Soulogy. The event is happening. Galactic Federation of Light, High Vibe Tribe, some of our affiliate groups. Yeah, Twin Flame, 1111, and Pure Love. Okay. Got 34 people in the house and counting. Let me just share this to the Soulogy.One Studios page so we can have all of our archives intact. So you're over there. You're Monday over there in New Zealand, aren't you?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We're into the week.
I'm still on Sunday.
I know you're relaxing in the sun.
Uh, no, it's actually a little over. Well, no, the mountains are overcast and the beach looks like it's sunny. But
I was
we've
expecting you to have one of these flower shirts on to advertise Hawaii instead of
I
plain old
should.
shirt.
I need to get some shirts. Hello, Heather Nilsson, Cricket Holden, Evie Anastasiadi, Fiona Mannix, Sandra Rose, Donna Davin, Heather Houston, Michael Kilmore, Maria Iverson from Sweden, Fiona Mannix, Carmel Ann Callan from Boston, Callan, Connie Ma, Dominican Republic, our good friend Errol Dean down in Ireland. Let's see, Marilyn Coons, Janine Tall, Mira Betts in the house from Kauai, Roxanne Smith, Linda Winger, Sonia Tidy, Michelle Weisenberger, Terry Willette, longtime supporter, Gretchen Anderholm, Bev Church, Susan Marie's in the house, Terry Willette, Sandra Goodwin, Lyra Love, Andrew Wallens, and I think I've got everybody so far. So if these shows resonate, please share. We're making this transition, so we're available in the Zoom room as well as on Facebook when they allow us on, and when they don't, we just do it on YouTube. When we get to our own site, we're shooting for this next month. All things remain in alignment. We'll be when we broadcast, we'll broadcast to our site, to YouTube, and to Facebook at the same time, if they allow us. Which I guess is going to be based on a one-to-one basis with each show that we do. But you'll always be able to find us at the Soulogy.One website. So that'll be coming soon. Thanks to everybody's love and support and contributions. Welcome, Nicky Hamid, back. Soul Speaks 5D, our dear brother, Merlin incarnated. And,
You'll keep. You'll keep.
Let's see. Okay. So we had, I received a message from you, and thank you for joining us, Nikki, and sharing your space with us and honoring us with your presence again. Best to your beautiful wife. You
Thank
sent
you.
a note and you said, let's have a conversation about maleness, especially the energy and of father, grandfather beingness, the fears men hold, and the adoption of their inner feminine, etc. There may be something I can add to the discussion of the rise of the masculine in truth and the upholding of the feminine, now fully merging online. I think this is a very important subject. I'm very happy that you brought it up. And with that, I will hand it over to you and let you intro this thing.
Yeah, well, I thought it's about time that we started um, to bring in the expansiveness of male coming into themselves. And there's so much that we could talk about. And uh, so I first of all wanted to say something about what it's like or what it's meant to be male. And I'm not just talking about those who are male in this incarnation. I think it's the experience that all who have incarnated a number of times have had the experience of it. And I just wanted to remind people of where we've come from and why it is like it has been and why it's no longer need to be how it has been. So just, just simply to remember that we've had the human history has been one of warring, and every one of us who've incarnated more than a number of times have been to war.
Yeah.
And when you go to war and you're warring against an enemy, you can't do it very well unless you hate. You can't do it very well. And so every one of us who've been male have have incarnated and been in a situation where we've had to build ourselves up to hate. And the original motive may not have been conscription into an army. It may be necessity. That's the way you were going to feed your wife and children.
Yeah.
And so to do it and to survive, you had to hate. You had to be able to go into battle and hack and hew the enemy as if they were nothing. They meant nothing to you. So you dropped your feeling and you built up your hate and your anger to do it. And then even after battle, when you survived and were bloody, you would go into the town of the enemy, and the enemy weren't human. They weren't. They,
Yeah.
they were the enemy. And you went and you raped and you killed children because of the anger and hate that you held.
Yeah.
And so every one of us who holds a male body remembers that. And so we come in this incarnation, apart from the traumas and the things we have to deal with in our life, we also have the memory of that and the memory of the power of our anger and how it takes over. It takes us over.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's I see it time and time again that men, as they are rising, as they are coming into, if you like, their spirituality, they have to deal with this fear of their own power.
Mm.
This is huge.
Yeah.
This is huge. You see it well, I see it a lot. I've seen it over years with men, how they hold back all the time in the presence of women because they're afraid. They hold back their sexuality. They hold back their willingness to stand out. They go to a group. Usually, it's what 80% women, 20% men. But more often than not, those men are very quiet in the background. And so the male spirituality is reflected by a sort of a meekness, but a kind of a false meekness, because they're still dealing with their issues of power.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, with a proportion like that, 80-20, I think most men would be smart to keep quiet. But number
yeah,
one,
yeah.
uh,
There's
well, mhm,
there's also, though, the fact of the recognition that the feminine must rise,
yeah,
because they're afraid of their own power. They're afraid of their own power over women, because that's the way it's been.
yeah,
And so it's like a kind of an overcompensation for that.
yeah,
But it was necessary also for the feminine to rise.
yeah,
They need to have their expression. But now I'm seeing the men, as they are more at home with their lovingness and no longer seeing that as a weakness,
yeah,
they can begin to take their own power back and start to overcome the fears. And so the women have been, often say, where are all the men? They want their partner. Where are all the men? The men are there. They're here. The men are here. But it's kind of like not necessarily consciously, but unconsciously biding their time,
yeah,
because the feminine had to rise first. And those men, those gentlemen, I call them gentlemen because a gentleman has the power but never wields it.
wow, that's a
It got,
powerful statement.
yeah. Well, I was lucky to have a father who was like that. And just before he died, I didn't know he was going to die. I had a conversation with him, and I told him what I thought of him exactly. And I said, Dad, you've always shown me what a gentleman is like.
Wow,
He was a father. He was a beautiful father. He was someone who always held the power in the family, but never wielded it. He was in the background. And you came to him when you wanted stability, and he oozed it.
wow,
And this is what I see. I mean, you use the word divine masculine. I don't use that so much, because
yeah,
it's not, yeah. But the male, I call the father, because father, mother, one. Father is the provider, the power, provides the energy, as it were. And the mother is the receiver, the creator, the nurturer. So in the old days, in the secret societies, and they were secret not because the truth was being kept from people, they were secret because it was sacred, and people kind of earned their place to receive the gifts of truth. But in those gatherings, right back through ancient times, but even if we come as nearby as the Essenes, Jesus and Mary and Magdalene and all the others around that time were part of the Essenes. When they gathered together, the males would come forward in a circle, and they'd stand and they'd hold the place and the energy and the power of creator.
mm,
Nothing much would be said. They would step back and the women would come forward, and the women would do all the ceremonies, and the men would be in the background holding the space. And it was a beautiful relationship, but the women did the display, as it were. And it was known and respected and felt in the same way as father brings the energy of the fire. We'll just take the image of the sun. The sun provides the energy and the fire, and Mother Earth is the cup that fills, and as it overflows, she nurtures all from the overflow of her reception. And what we're seeing is the divine feminine really getting this whole idea of receiving in the truth of it all, and being the cup, the mother.
That's amazing.
But the father is the provider. In the same way, in human terms, we get father goes to work, mother stays at home and looks after the children. Now that might upset people, but this is not a role. It's a place of beingness. And it's brought home to me, Todd, just in so often. And just the other day before yesterday, I was in the supermarket, and there was a man in front of me. I was in the short queue because he didn't have many items, and he looked around and then stepped aside to let me go first because I was older than him or whatever. And I suddenly recognized him. He was a guy who came to one of my seminars about 3 years ago, and now and again I see him in the supermarket, and we'd have a talk, and he'd be asking questions because he was really searching, a lovely, sensitive chap. But I saw him on this day. I want to cry. I want to cry because I saw in his eyes, he was worn out, physically worn out. And he said he'd been working hard, long hours, and his body was tired. But I saw in his eyes, like his soul calling, what's this all about?
Yeah.
He's sincerely doing his very best. And he's dying through the effort he's putting in and being a man.
Yeah.
And this is what we've all seen so often.
Yeah.
And I see it in the spiritual circles, men coming there, and they're bewildered often. They're not anti, they want to know, but they don't know how to feel, or they're afraid of feeling. And this is so commonplace. And so the excitement for me is just rising that there are many of us coming to the surface and no longer being afraid of our own power and no longer being scared that we're usurping the feminine by being who we are. This is huge. The father of the father-mother one.
Yeah. That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. As we are made in the image.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, that feeling of fatherhood goes along with this sense of our own femininity as well. Just as, and where I see it and where I've seen it, I go back to the early 70s when women's lib was strong, and very political. And at our university that I taught at, it was the first university in New Zealand to have a women's studies degree and so on. And that was very unusual and very radical, But the women were very militant. And
I
we
remember
also,
that.
yeah.
I remember.
And
Yeah.
you daren't tread. You daren't. Yeah. I mean, even there were some fools who rushed in where angels fear to tread, but they didn't last long amongst those women. They got eaten alive.
Yeah.
But at that time also, there was a high sensitivity to counseling and touching, and the touching of children, and it was the stories of rape were beginning to emerge. And so there were quite a few counsellors who were pilloried innocently because somebody came, their opposite sex came and wanted somehow to blame them for something they hadn't done.
Yeah.
And so there was this all this sensitivity, and it had to play itself out. I understand that.
Yeah.
For me, I was a father, and I had 2 little girls, and I never ever thought once of having them on my lap and cuddling them. You know, it was what a father did, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's one, if you haven't done it, if anyone hasn't done it, a father with a daughter and the closeness you have is just has its own, just as it would do, and it does with a mother and a son.
Yeah.
It's an energetic which is beyond description. So, but in this political climate, in this climate that was in my face so much, I started to question sitting my daughter on my knee.
Yeah.
And that took me ages to get over with.
Yeah.
How, it's like that was something I had to work with.
Yeah.
And that was, I had to honor my knowing of myself and forget that even though it has a reality.
Yeah, it's amazing how deep. I have 3 daughters and one I adopted. So from my point of view, 4 daughters, and I've held them all in my lap. And but also as I got older, I got to the point where I would not allow myself in certain situations with them.
No.
And that was unfortunate because of the fear of society. Because in the States, about a third of all cases are domestic family law cases, criminal family law cases. What you're bringing up in this energy of going to war, not being constricted, and actually doing it because you've got to provide. These are all memories that we are embedded in the men.
Yes.
I've said often, many times, we killed, we went to war, we did it, and we actually did it for her, thinking this is what we're supposed to do for family, for country, for the relationship, and so on. And and I think there has been or had been, because I remember when the feminine landed in late 2015, at least from my perspective, and there had been a lot of, hey, when you guys going to hurry up, and you guys this and you guys, but it started to turn, and like to your point, now the men are starting to find themselves, and I noticed this last month. I started to notice it last month, and I really was intrigued by it because I was curious to see what's going to happen now. But I love what you said about, that he is the copy or the image or the energy of the Father, God, provider. And that is what it is. I mean, the feminine energy, we had to hit a point where the feminine energy had to be seen for what she was.
Yes.
And
she had to feel it herself.
Well, yeah, she had to feel it herself.
Restriction.
He couldn't provide it for her, but at the same time, in this realm we're in, or whatever, it became obvious. It was not. It was a force that was not going to be denied, and so that kind of left him sitting there holding his willy, not knowing what to do, And but really, I mean, it literally. And we talked about this before. Demasculation. Your sexual power as you knew it wasn't even real. This dominance and control and manipulation and button pushing. So the whole idea that what you said earlier too about the sexuality, not even knowing what to do, and starting all over. It's funny. I put a post out about 10 days ago, because I had the same train of thought right before you messaged me. Maybe it was in the air. And I put a post out. I said, until a man removes the energy of his sexual organs, he will not become, he will not step into his true sacred reality, his sacred shoes, his masculine, sacred masculine, divine masculine, whatever you want to call it. And the interesting thing was, I knew because it was a short meme that not too many people might not get it, but many women, of course, did. And there was a handful of men on maybe 100 comments, and I was amazed at probably 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 were in resistance.
Yeah.
And I know I was for a long time, like we all were, but it just amazed me is how deep that wound goes. And when you brought that up at the beginning of the show, in regard to being afraid to show his sexuality to her, we're speaking energy or people or whatever, because why? I felt that before. I felt that like
Well,
what if she doesn't, what if she takes it the wrong way, what if she, what if this,
right.
what if that.
Well, you see, that's one side of the male equation, but there's another side of it too. There are a lot of men out there who don't have preoccupation with their willing, and they are afraid to have the relationship or don't feel free in their relationship because they have this memory of dominating women
Yeah.
and the guilt,
Yeah.
not just for themselves, but for what men have done. And so they may not be highly sexed at all.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for them because what's paramount in their mind, in their thinking, is how do I do it? How can I show my intimacy in physicality without feeling this guilt of dominating her?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is big. That is big, but it's
That
not
is
spoken about. It's
that
not.
is big. That is big. It's like, what do you do? I
Yeah.
literally, when I first met Morgan in the flesh two plus years ago, that's where I was at. I
Mm,
literally didn't know what to do.
mm,
And it was a combination of what you're talking about. I guess it was the energy of what you're talking about, really.
yeah. Yeah.
Because
It
I
was.
remember, I remember setting my hands on her in the first few days, just sitting, and I put my hands on her. And I started to receive everything she had endured.
Mm,
So, but it was through her incarnation, but obviously it was the collective feminine.
yeah.
And it was mind blowing. It came back to me in imagery many times and just
Mm.
made me just
Well, it's
just,
even without remembering it. Uh, you've been male, but you've been female also, and you suffered the consequences. I've had seen one incarnation in particular when I was going through owning this sort of stuff as a young woman and going through the horrors, not just of rape, but of slow death and all the ins and outs to the point of actually, seeing that, going through it, and then seeing myself looking back at my body, my
yeah,
mutilated body.
yeah,
And so we know it from that side too, and being intimate and off, and sometimes it's the first and maybe the one and only intimate relationship a man will have.
yeah,
um, those, because there's this, I don't like using the word much, but I'll say shadow.
yeah,
The soul has been wounded, and not just on this planet, on other planets and other, it
yeah.
has been wounded. And now these wounds are coming up to be released.
Great point. That's
Yeah,
a great point.
yeah.
Nikki, how does, I think, and I could be wrong. Uh, I struggled with this, and maybe I'm just different, and I'm past it now, and I can't explain how I did it, but obviously I'm in a relationship that helped me do it. But uh, the statement that you made, until as you were going through your process, you said, until I owned it.
Mm.
I owned it. And what I want to say is, when you're saying that, you're saying, I'm getting, and this is how I felt, or I got to the point that I had to own what the masculine energy did to the feminine energy at a minimum in this realm. And, and it was hard for me to understand, because I had always treated the feminine energy very well, and was respectful and all that. I didn't really get it all. And I don't know how it all evolved for me, but I just want to make the comment or the question and throw it at you. Do you think that some men might have a hard time understanding why they need to own what happened collectively? I mean, can you talk to that a little bit to maybe make it easier for people, for men to understand what the importance is, and why essentially it's incumbent upon them to do that?
Yeah. I think with women having clearing first, it's taught us a lot. And one of the things to me it's taught us is there's too much emphasis on clearing. It can be quick. All we need to do is see it and recognize it and say, thank you, thank you. Now I know. That's all. That's the owning of it. I know what's possible. Let me give an example. I've said to you before that when I went through my big transition and I was out of my body, my Kundalini was up for 6 months, and I had to keep trying to bring it down to come back in my body. What I also did was went through the ego, the male ego, and the male ego, and in the end, when I look back at it, I had to go through all the kinds of games, unconscious, conscious games that males play to put females in a position of submission.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's not, most of it's not physical, it's mental.
Yeah.
It's control, mind games.
Yeah.
And I tell you, there were 101 different mind games I played to subjugate women.
Yeah. And it was a subtle pattern, wasn't it?
Yeah, subtle ways you do it. And we're through the games, the logic games, twisting and turning them so they don't know where they are when they're coming up with emotion and sharing and so on, and putting them into a place of frustration, despair, whatever.
Yeah.
And therefore, and then you have the extreme forms where the man is so controlling and then violent.
Well, I mean, I think this is so important. And yeah, the extremes are the extremes. We can't diminish that, but I think for the most part, we're talking about the vast majority of men. Let's just say, I was amazed. I've seen, and I know there were a lot of subtle patterns and behaviors in my own path, in my own evolution, that I discovered that I didn't realize I was controlling, manipulating the feminine. It was ingrained in me, and I just didn't realize it. Although I was sensitive to them and this and that, but one of the reasons that my eyes got open is because of some men that were in these circles that I befriended, that I actually got to see in person, even that really held women in a subordinate position, period, openly stated it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're out here preaching the good book and shining the light, so to speak, and this is how you run your personal life, by keeping women under your thumb. And I wasn't a place of judgment, I admit that, but it also gave me great discernment to look within myself and say, wait a minute, because I had been, becoming into a relationship, at the time with Morgan, and I started to look at some of this stuff that she might point out, or I might realize about myself. Very subtle, but I think your explanation is great because the reason, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong or expand on it, the reason that the man needs to own it is because that is basically the opposite. That's acceptance. It's the opposite of resistance, and therefore, if he's open and accepting of it, he's open and accepting of the fact that he may be subjected, having been subjected to the conditioning and have these subtle patterns of behaviors that he's not even aware of. Because
Yeah.
if you don't believe if you don't believe you have it in you, you're never going to see it in you. Right?
No, that's right. Well, what I wanted to say was my journey through, we'll say the 101 conditions of attempted domination. What it taught me was that if we look at the human condition, whatever has done by one person is a potential in me.
Yeah.
Right? So I can, it's not own in the sense of I've done it all. Maybe I have. Who knows?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But I have to own that it's possible and see the wow in it. Wow, how cleverly I will keep myself in this position. And so it's just the recognition is needed. That's the owning. The recognition is, yeah, this is human. If it's possible for any human, it's also possible for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going there. I'm not going there at all. But I understand. How could we have compassion for everything if we didn't prepared as human to recognize everything that is human?
Yeah.
But we don't have to own it in the sense of, oh, well, I did that and all the rest of it. No, all we need to do is see it. I've seen it. Aha, thank you. I know. And it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to say now, from what you were saying, or what was it? Oh, yes, you said you saw these men who, and I've seen it with the gurus.
And well, that's the type of energy I'm talking about. This guru type energy, and literally say to me, you can't trust women, and basically treat them like chattel.
Yeah, without saying it, they're almost saying, well, women are dogs. Yeah. Well, what happens to me when I see that? I rise up. And I have wrath. How dare you?
Yeah.
And I mean it. How dare you? And I'm not afraid of that. How dare you?
Yeah.
In the same way as teasing.
Yeah.
Teasing someone who you see as weaker as you, even if it's only in fun, teasing them, making them feel fearful. How dare you? I got into a lot of trouble when I was younger because I would fight big boys, bigger than me. And I wasn't just annoyed or upset. I was furious.
Yeah.
But I love that in me. I'm not afraid of it in me.
Yeah.
And I call it wrath because I tell you, Todd, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm not leaving this planet until there's not one child goes to sleep at night afraid.
Yeah.
That's the father. That's the father. And so I'm saying to blokes here, feel your father.
Yeah.
Feel the father energy. What is fathering? Get to know the word and the feel of it. That's who you are. That's man rising. And I get to know many beautiful sisters. And I know a lot of them trust me. And why do they trust me? Because it's like they see me as a grandfather. And like my granddaughter, I was living in Hong Kong. I came back to New Zealand, and my daughter had her daughter, and she was only a toddler. But as soon as I came in the room, I sat on the couch and so on. She came. She walked straight up to me, a stranger with a beard, right? And she turned round and backed into between my legs and leaned on my one of my legs. It's like, I feel safe here.
Yeah.
It's not to say she wasn't safe with her mum and dad, but every time she'd come there, if there were a crowd, we'd have a crowd. She, shy as a little toddler, but she would come and stand there between my legs and then look out, and then she'd venture out. It's like that energy is palpable.
Yeah.
It's the energy, and this is the energy of the masculine rising to me. And this is
Yeah.
what we're beginning to see beautifully. I mean, I see it in you. It's like being a father and now not being afraid of how the opposite sex or others are going to misinterpret it. If they do, that's their problem.
Yeah.
That's their problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to be who I am because that's how I love, and I'm not going to hold back anymore.
The energy of the father.
Yeah, the father, the energy of the father and the grandfather.
Yeah. 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 And I think because there's been so much emphasis on the feminine, and rightfully so.
Yes, yes.
As we've gotten to this point, maybe mid last year, you started to see a rise in that masculine energy. But because of where the masculine energy was coming from, uh, I mean, Morgan said something to me one time. She said uh, she blamed him and he blamed himself.
Mm.
So it was like a double whammy,
Yeah, yeah,
you know. But I do see men stepping through, coming out of the fire now,
yeah, yeah.
and it's tender. The sore spots are still tender, and you're still not totally 100% confident. And it's new. There's a newness to it, almost like you were saying, in terms of the fear of functioning, interacting, with the feminine. But it's happening, and
Yes,
that's the good news. Yeah.
yes. I think another point to say to guys is what I've seen, and I've worked with people with this is there's a masculine way of seeing things and a feminine way of seeing
Yeah.
things,
True.
and the people are different, you know. But typically, when couples have uh, an argument, or a different opinion, or the woman's feeling something and wants to share it, the guy comes along and he wants to solve it for her. He wants to take away her pain, you
Yeah.
know, and she doesn't want that. She
Yeah.
just wants to be heard. And
That's it.
he's the solver, the provider, so he takes it away, and then there's all kinds of disruption, and he goes away bewildered.
Yes, that's right, and she is too. It's
Yeah, and she's
that
bewildered
that's
too.
that's a great that really probably is the basic in the trenches scenario, and I think it's important to remember we are coming from two different places, and
Yeah,
also to remember the intentions of the heart.
yes,
Why does he want to fix it? Because
he
his
wants to make her happy.
yeah, exactly. But and then and I'm not speaking in blanket terms here, but then she uh gets upset. Uh you know, I mean, her intention is to give him her heart. That's why she wants to talk, you know. So it's been this type of journey, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he has become collectively and individually a better listener.
Yeah, right.
It's just such a new virgin territory, but it's also fertile,
It
extremely
is.
fertile territory. But I think it's like we're coming out, rubbing our eye, coming out of the fire, rubbing our eyes, and going like that.
Mm.
It's
So the father, you see, doesn't solve. He's a provider, but he doesn't solve. The man doesn't solve. He is present.
Yeah.
He is present, and he has that solidness of presence.
Yeah.
And, if there is a problem, well, he'll contribute to the solution of the problem. But when it's regards to others, it's that ability to allow and not judge and be present. And that's why grandchildren love their grandfather, because he's got all sorts of wisdom and they're ready for it. They're ready for it because he's not fixing. He just has the joy of sharing with them.
Yeah. And he can't fix it.
No,
That's the whole thing. He can provide. That's not fixing anything. That's part
no.
of the father that you're talking about, the father energy. But the truth is he can't fix it. I mean, I know in my journey with Morgan, that's one of the things I've had to learn. And I think sometimes when we think of that example, we think we got to fix something, and it's a physical scenario, like fix the leaky faucet or fix this problem. It's not. It's not that. We feel that energy, or we felt that energy come in. We saw it as something foreign to us. It had us on our heels because it was uncomfortable or whatever the case is. So we just wanted to put it out because we felt like she was going through the same thing when she really wasn't.
No.
In fact, it was liberating to her, to the feminine, to be able to express, and that put, that put some type of positive pressure on the masculine, who's now
Yeah.
taking the next step out, which is like you said, is to have the awareness, and then to say, I am this energy. I am this father, grandfather energy.
Yes. Yes. And it's not even trying to be a grandfather. It's natural. It comes natural. When you're not fighting yourself, when you're just being yourself, it's natural. It's natural to want to see everyone happy.
Yeah.
It's natural to feel that you're part of this, and you're solid and reliable, and you're able to provide an atmosphere where others feel safe,
Yeah.
and you love to watch and see people thrive.
Yeah.
You love to see the joy in your grandchildren, but in everyone. For me, it's like you go to a retreat place, and the women are more expressive. Well, there are usually more women. In fact, just aside, in 2012, I had the one retreat I took when there were 50-50 men and women, and it was amazing. It was amazing, the things that happened in that. But apart from that, at the most, it was 70-30. 30. Anyway, just the joy of seeing others enjoying, and the fact that you have provided something that's contributed to this. You don't need any recognition. It's just you're happy with your presence of being there.
Yeah.
And
I think that's another thing that's, and I'm just drawing my own experience, but I think that's another thing. Maybe it's an example of the type of energy or challenges or obstacles that the masculines had. So, for instance, we came out of a very competitive, winner type of mentality, conditioning. I look at my old corporate life, and that was it. Whatever it was, sports, whatever, you got to be number one. You got to be the winner. You got to be the best. And like you said, then you let go, and you go through this metamorphosis, and you come out of the cocoon. And in my own case, things started to align, and then there is a lot of energy coming at me, or has come at me, adulation, praise, that type of thing. And the funny thing was, or is, that in the prior incarnation, in this lifetime, before I woke up in the corporate world, I I guess I wanted that recognition, and I took that stuff in, and I find it It's not a huge problem, but I find it somewhat difficult at times to take on that praise. And I think that's part of what he's up against, that in that natural state, he's actually going to bring in what he's putting out. You know, he's
Mm,
acting from his heart. He's getting heartfelt uh, actions from the universe, the faces of the universe. And so this is a big step too. I mean,
yes.
to be, you know, what do people say sometimes? You know, the biggest challenge in this whole thing is accepting our own divinity. It's not shedding any quote unquote shadow or anything like that. It's actually accepting the fact of what you are.
Mm, yeah. Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was fortunate enough not to have a, well, if you like, my father. I remember going home. I was quite young. I was very sporty, you know, physically. I enjoyed physical things, and complaining that to my father one day that I love playing games, but when people got too serious, you know, about winning and so on, um, I didn't like that, and I'd go off. You know, I just stop playing or just muck around and frustrate people. And he said to me, "Son, the best idea if you don't want competition is to lose deliberately and enjoy it." That was the way to put me. And yeah, people either played for fun with me or they didn't play with me because I wouldn't compete.
Yeah. Wow. What a
But
gift that, what a gift that was.
yeah, it was a gift.
That
But
saved you a lot of scars right there. That's for
yeah, yeah, competitiveness, it's really important. And you still see it in the spiritual arena.
I still struggle with it. And I admit that. I mean, I've come a long way, and I'm not going to diminish what I've done for myself, you know.
Mm, mm,
But I keep an eye, for instance, on other shows and
mm.
other speakers or talk show hosts or whatever. You know, I keep an eye on websites and this and that, and I still find this little voice coming in
Yeah.
and saying things that I know aren't me. You know, like
Mm.
you know, they're comments of superiority.
Yeah.
And so I say to myself, what is that? Well, and then I say to myself, that's just a program. That
Mhm.
program's fading out now. Just, you know, it's fading out now. And I do have to make a conscious effort with it. But it's been a big deal because I was extremely alpha male, extremely competitive, and you know, and it, you know, I don't want to say it almost killed me, but it almost killed me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. You can see that. Um, but I think, well, I'm seeing more with men is that confusion. You
Yeah.
know, confusion. They want to be different. They want to, but they don't. With women, they don't know how to be. And I know in your culture more than mine because in the States you have a whole culture of romancing and dating and dating agencies. We don't have much of that so it's not, you know, dating happens like topsy rather than you, but there's a whole industry. So then we go through the secret stuff of the law of attraction, and people are still itemizing what they want in terms of a partner,
Yeah.
with the view they don't want that what they've had. And I'm not surprised that a lot of women are on their own
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well, yeah.
because yeah. Uh,
Better safe than sorry, right?
yeah, that's right. And there are a lot of men out there who are confused. They
Yeah.
find, I guarantee, if they find someone that they can adore,
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter whether they're a computer geek and she's a teacher of self
Hey,
empowerment to others.
I'm
It
living
doesn't
proof,
matter.
man. I'm
What's that?
living proof. I'm living proof of that. I'm living proof of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
When she got back this time, I was about 3, 4 inches bigger in the waist.
yeah,
I'd been eating late every night, you know, but yeah,
you,
it's true. But I think there has to be there, because I mean, you know, I've heard women, it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's that ancestral, you know, DNA embedded in the whole in all of us that it's carried forward. And I've heard many men, and I was one of them, that just could not trust her,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And it's a very personal and intricate dance, I think, because
Well,
ultimately, because ultimately, that trust, let's say it was me, that trust that I didn't have for women was really a trust I didn't have for myself, or something unresolved in myself.
exactly. Yeah. For me, we want to take the whiteboard. We've got it all written our past and what we would like and so on. Is to get the eraser and wipe the whole friggin' lot out and say, I want the highest in this lifetime.
Yeah,
I want the highest my soul can be.
yeah,
I need, I would like, I desire someone to share my life with.
yeah.
Bring me the highest that's possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think that's the
That's
most.
it. That's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the most. You've said a lot of really profound things so far, and I think that's the most profound. And I just want to repeat that to everybody, whether we're talking about uh, having a divine partner or anything else. One thing has held true, and I've talked to almost 1,000 shows now, uh, and on my own life, and that is when we ask, it comes. And I can tell you, in the case of the relationship, and I've talked about that before on the show, I literally got up at 3:33 in the morning, came off the couch, came out of a trauma, and I jumped up and I said, I need her now. And 2 minutes later, she messaged me, and that's how this thing started with Morgan. So, I mean, and I've heard other people say the same thing.
Yeah.
Many people say the same
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah, I knew Glenn at least 2 years before she came along, and I knew her, and she was just somebody. She wasn't anyone special at all. I didn't have a clue. But when the time would come, it was like it's a totally different person. We saw her coming in the ethers.
was she different, or were you?
We both, well, we weren't ready. We weren't. We had things, so we're like a different version of ourselves
Yeah. Well, you know,
until the time comes, and
yeah.
then when it's there, and there's no question. There'll be no question
Mm.
when the person comes. There'll be growth, but there'll be there's
Yeah.
no
Well,
question.
and I think that's another really important thing, Nikki, especially with this subject matter today, is that I am not who I was yesterday.
Mm,
I am, like you said, you don't necessarily have to remove these shadows. Being aware, becoming into that awareness does something in itself. And I think it's important to remember, when it comes to the sexes, when it comes to our own personal reflection and the reflection of others, that that person is somebody new today. Give
mm.
that new person a chance rather than judge them based on what you think they were or what they were,
Yeah, yeah,
especially for yourself, because it's going to translate to yourself at
yeah,
some level.
yeah, yeah. Yes. Well, I must say that what I've said at this point is about directed towards male female, and of course with relationship it doesn't have to be that at all.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same, because there are a lot of people getting surprises that their partner is someone of the same sex,
Yeah.
and it can be as much a surprise to them uh, as anyone else. So it isn't the right relationship has nothing to do with gender,
No, that's true.
but the way the relationship comes and the knowing it is there, and there's no doubt. You don't need criteria. You
Mm-mm.
don't need to see that you're on the same page. It's so natural. This is
Yeah.
This is, if you like, 5D being, and the same with how do you become more an emerging divine male.
Yeah. Well,
You
how
just
how
you feel these things like father. What does father mean to me? If I didn't have a good example of a father, what is father? How does that make me feel? And go to the Father One.
Yeah.
What does the sun do? The sun keeps shining. It's totally in love with the earth. And it just keeps providing and keeps providing for
Yeah.
the earth and all her children. And the mother receives that and gives.
It's a
Gaia, that's all she knows is to give. That's mother. That's mother. But she must receive, and that tells us something.
yeah.
She has to take her own love and her own needs and her own wants and ask for herself, because she can only be the full provider if her cup is full.
Yeah. That's right. It's a
And
it's a sacred
someone,
sharing.
yeah, and if they're open to their cup being full and you're in partnership, then as male, you provide.
Yeah.
You provide whatever you have to provide, and that makes you feel full.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, filling her cup fills my cup.
That's right. It's a sacred sharing.
Yeah, it is, and
It's
vice versa,
yeah. It's
and
a
vice versa.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a
What
beautiful cosmic dance.
there's obviously, like you said, a lot of men in confusion,
Mm, mm,
and I would imagine most every one of them, including me, at some degree or another. There's still some confusion. You're still like wiping the sleep from your eyes.
yeah.
You've lost all your identities, and you're like, what am I doing now, and who am I, and all that. What where does a man start? Where does he start to expand his awareness, help himself, get to a higher ground? What do you recommend?
I think there's just a number of questions you ask yourself, general, and you may not get the answer straight away, but it will unfold within you as you're open to it. And one question is, when I think of other people, what brings me joy? What brings me joy? What kind of? It's not the material trappings, but what brings me joy when I feel other people? What brings me joy when I do things with other people or for other people? You know, and it might be just somebody who tinkers with motorbikes in their shed, but now and again people come along and he takes them into their shed and they have a chat about all sorts of things, and you see the joy in the man's face when he's doing this, if this is his thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's the beginning of it. It's that passion and enjoyment and play. Man has to
Yeah.
learn to play
Yeah.
and not be, yeah. One of the other things is this provider thing. It's pretty hard in these economic times when you don't have a job and you're not earning money and you've got a partner and you feel very responsible, even though she may be earning, you still feel responsible. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm not the provider. And this isn't a societal role thing we're talking about here. We're talking about
Yeah.
father, the father. And it's what you're recognizing that sometimes we we have to, we need to, we're developing our feminine aspect, and sometimes we have to be in reception and total reception, and I think it's difficult for a lot of men to be in reception, to be the mother, to feel the mother presence, and to allow it to be part of your experience,
Yeah.
and for the father to be in the background, as it were, but still present. So I would look to the divine. I would look to Father, Mother, One. Show me.
Yeah.
Show me the way. Show me what I need to know, and I will follow it. I will follow my own lead, and not be afraid or feel that fear. Acknowledge it and say, I'm going anyway. I'm going that direction anyway.
Yeah.
And the other part is, I don't have to understand. I don't have to know. That half has to be followed without knowing.
Yeah.
And in these times, we've got it working for us because we have this no mind state that lots and lots of people are feeling now. You know, don't you feel? There's right to these energies at the time. It's like, I got no mind. It's like, duh.
Yeah. We were talking about that today.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, I know from way back when I had the 6 months of no mind trying to get back, but it's here for everyone.
Yeah.
To experience. And you just gotta suck it up and say, okay, let me play with this. I'm a 2-year-old. And what does a 2-year-old know? Nothing.
Just led by curiosity, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's what's in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a need to know basis. And that's scary for men.
Yeah.
Because they want an explanation.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I'm asking the question why, but I don't have to know the answer. Just little devices like that. I don't have to.
Yeah. You don't have to know the answer or
No.
why did this happen? Like what did I just receive from the universe? I don't need to know.
Yeah.
We don't need to know all that stuff. You made a comment in the message that I transposed onto and it was the adoption of his inner feminine. I think maybe that's another thing that men struggle with is what the hell does that mean? I mean, how do I bring forth this feminine energy within myself? I mean, I think the closest I can get to it, and I'm looking for explanation from you, and I think a lot of us need it, men. One is definitely holding space. And holding space, what I mean, listening.
Yeah.
Listening, which is a form of nurturing. It's a lot of things, but I mean, is there anything you can expand onto that?
Lots of things really, Carl, because they're listening. I know what you mean by listening, but some people hearing listening, well, I listen. Well, you can listen, but you don't hear. you know, because you're forever processing it in the mind. For me, it is about feeling. The feminine is about feeling. It's not emotional feeling. It's feeling. It's sensitivity. So I would ask myself, what are the qualities that are feminine that I love? That I really love. I mean, it might be the softness, the grace, those sorts of things. Now, how can I bring that in? One of the things women do that men don't do so much at all is, except gay men probably more, is express themselves. I mean, they'll look in a shop window and they'll see something. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And the husband gulps and says, I'll do it. Can we afford it? But she's often just saying it's delightful, it's beautiful. She doesn't want it.
Yeah.
She's just appreciating it. Well, it's a big thing for men to delight out loud.
Yeah.
So there's something you can do straight away. Practicing when you see something you like, appreciating it out loud.
Yeah.
That might seem a little thing, but it's big. It's big.
That is
big. Because you bring the feeling forward.
Yeah. And that example you're giving is very true. It's a very true example.
Yeah. And so it's like watching them. And what do you delight in? What do you appreciate? Well, do that in your life, or at least take the words of it and feel what it means.
Yeah.
That's bringing up softness, feeling soft things and just being aware of the softness.
Yeah.
And there are many
being-
qualities that we can speak of, that we could say are feminine. Whether they are or not doesn't matter. It's bringing back the feeling.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well,
And
the feeling that to me kind of sums it up when you say that, because you know, honoring the feelings rather than, I mean, we suppressed them for so long. It was almost like we became numb. I guess we did. And or they became, because we were numbing ourselves in different ways, they didn't even register anymore.
yeah.
It was like it wasn't even part of the game. It's like we divorced ourselves from something that we couldn't, but we
Yeah.
know we did,
Yeah.
you know.
It's like picking up a piece of velvet and feeling it and feeling the touch of it
Yeah.
and allowing that feeling to come without letting it become sexual or anything.
Yeah.
Just as a sensation.
Yeah.
You're having a cup of coffee instead of, oh, yeah, this is a good cup of coffee, eh, mate? Wow, this tastes nice. The smell of it is nice. And you're feeling it go down. And it's just deliberately or consciously amplifying your experience.
Yeah.
And being able to express that.
That's very true. You hear women do that. Women will say, this is a nice tea. This is a nice meal. This is,
Yeah,
or
I
it's
love
not.
that.
And,
Yeah.
and men, you don't typically hear say that
No.
unless it's a some kind of penile extension, like a big truck.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. So it is in simple awareness. That's how men will, and they'll find their soft center, and it won't be difficult. It's just a step-by-step process of simple being here now
Yeah.
and choosing your perception in a different way. And you'll do what I call unpacking. You'll take an experience and you'll unpack it in a different way. You'll unpack it more like women unpack it in a natural way.
Yeah.
And that brings back the feminine.
Yeah. And that's
Simple.
another
Go
thing that
on.
stands out that you just said too. Her way is very natural. It is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And his way, that energy that we've come out of or coming out of, was unnatural.
Yeah. Yes.
Patriarchal, oppressive energy, unnatural. Unnatural not to be feeling. That's unnatural.
But there's natural, you see, there's a natural father. It's not just being negative. There are
Yeah.
natural things. There are care and concern for your family and
Yes.
a willingness to die for them. You know, this father thing is something you can have in embodiment
Yeah.
that she can know through you having it in embodiment
Yeah.
as for the mother.
Yeah.
And we can only recognize the fullness of their femininity, if you like, by knowing it in ourselves.
It's true.
And as I go back to what I said earlier, the gentleman knows his power, but never wields it.
Never has to.
Never wields it, no. Well, maybe except in the case of wrath, but then women can be very wrathful too, so it's not exclusive. You know, how dare you belongs to both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the king of the jungle and the lioness.
Yeah.
Holding the perimeter down.
Yeah. And so I suppose it's the truth of that saying, the lion will lay down with the lamb.
Yeah.
That's within ourselves as men. The
Yeah.
lion will lay down with the lamb.
Yeah, this is a great subject matter, and I think it's going to be necessary. Because another thing that's natural is that even before the awakening, the 2012 or whatever, women have support groups.
Mm.
Women support each other. That's a natural, nurturing thing. Men do not. And maybe it would be important to have support for the masculine energy to, you know.
No, 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 no.
No, no,
No, no, no, no, no, no, please not. Support groups have been fine, but support groups also maintain the focus on the problem. All right.
Well, no, I get what you're saying. No, what I
We,
meant was,
we
I
were,
went to AA,
yeah,
so I know what you. No, what I meant was like some type of no, I don't want to say program, but when I say support group, I don't mean group. I meant like a something like this, or a panel, or a place where we can actually talk about this amongst ourselves, be it private or public, and just say, because I've seen this happen so many times on the show. People in the comments say, "I thought I was the only one." I'm glad I'm here today. Thank you, Nikki. I didn't know I didn't know you went through the same thing, or whatever the case is. I think a lot of it is like you said, the key is becoming aware.
yeah,
And if it's put out there into the airwaves, so to speak, it will have more accessibility from the men. And I think there's a lot of them, like you said, that are confused and need it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I should know nothing like that, because in truth, we don't need it. We don't need that, because the women have needed that separation to break free of the culture. But we are not. But in them breaking free, they've shown a way that is already prepared for us to make our way in our own way, if you like, men. And it is now the way of integration, coming together, not as separated, to understand, because they need to know our journey.
Yes.
So in open sharing to all, we let them see our process.
That's a very good point.
And the other thing is, in letting them see, then you give an opportunity for a lot of the little issues of mistrust to dissolve.
Very good point. Yeah. Why keep it private?
You want to keep it private, and in the 5D, it's not sharing. We're soul beings sharing at various levels of our knowing.
Yeah.
But the sharing is going to come from us being able to sit with anyone, and for us to tell our stories and laugh together and enjoy the differences.
Yeah.
And this is what you're doing on your show. You know, there may be support groups, people at certain levels need that, but I don't see it necessary.
No, I think you're right. You're right. I guess my brain was thinking like putting out some programs specifically designed for that, but I usually get the cart before the horse anyway. But I don't know. I could just and we've had some. So going back to last year, I had one day we just did nothing but have men on talking about this stuff, and I guess that's as this thing goes, everything is in the moment, and that's where the power is. And you're right, that actually permeates into every part of the universes. I mean,
yes, it does. It does.
But,
No, I don't see any kind of support group. It's all about intention,
yes.
and so it will happen. But
The women broke the door down anyway. I mean, so so it's less cumbersome.
Yeah, and we won't have to go. It will be quicker for men.
Yeah.
For one thing, we moved from here to here to the heart.
Yeah.
They have to move from the womb all the way up. It's been much harder for them, but they've done it.
Yeah.
So it's much easier for us to drop from head to heart. Awareness is the key. Awareness in the present moment and going into feelings. That's the key.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Difficult sometimes, but simple.
I don't know if you want to, if there's anything you want to do as we go out the door here. If you want to do a blessing, or if you have anything else you'd like to say, we've still got a few minutes. But if there's
Thanks,
something,
Todd. No, but with me, it's always so simple. You're just going to love and letting the heart lead you, lead us. And we're going to come together and we're going to learn from each other. And if you're missing someone in your life, they're very close by. They're very close by for everyone. It's just a matter of trusting the whole thing, this whole process. It's amazing, divine plan. Nobody has the answers. And anyway, we wouldn't want to, because as 2-year-olds, we are open to everything that comes. And we don't even know, but we have no fear.
yeah,
We have no fear about it. It's all in good time, in God time.
yeah,
Father, Mother, One.
yeah.
And there's absolutely no way that we won't be okay.
True that.
And thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I so endorse. Human is the hero. Wow.
Human is the hero.
Wow.
Human is the hero.
What a game we've been playing.
Yeah, right. Till we get to that point.
And the game's up.
The game is up, and now this is where it gets interesting.
Absolutely.
We were talking about this earlier today. Morgan and I are talking about how a lot of people are feeling like the identities are gone. All the identities, labels, roles. And so there's a lot of people in a space of, well, what am I then? And I got this myself just, I think it's 2-3 weeks ago. And it was like, I was in that same space. She was in Australia and I was here and I was whatever. And I got that, I posed, what am I now? What do I do? And it was just like, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, what you were saying about the man, doing things that makes him happy, blissful, rather than the grind, So, yeah, I think this is where it gets really good. I'm really happy that you reached out, and I look forward to doing having more collaborations with you and your beautiful wife.
Yeah, be nice to have. I don't know about the new your new system, but to have 3 or 4 people on discussing this sort of thing, it'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said groups. But what I meant was like, no, we can have with the new system. We'll be able to have and really and it looks like it'll be this month, May. I've got a target date, but I'm not going to say what it is. But it looks like we'll be able to bring in as many people as we want to. I mean, we can bring up, I think, up to 100 people, but we could have, we're going to get creative with it. And I really would like for you and Glenn Ray to, I'm going to reach out to you to be part of what we're doing. And
we'd love to. Yeah. Glenn's gone to see a friend and she's having a nice break while I slave away in the house.
Yeah, right.
Knowing my place.
Yeah, right. All right, Nicky.
Up at the top. Okay, bye.
See you later. You take care.
Love you.
See y'all later. Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.